Well, hello again and welcome to this gigantic career video. Okay, featuring one of my top 10 all-time great ranked fighters, Maxie Rosenbloom. So, as you can see, Rosenbloom had an enormous career of nearly 300 fights. Okay, and in that time he fought so many ranked opponents, Hall of Famers, all-time greats, you name it. We will begin with his main career opponents, but I must warn you there's considerable slides and they are full. So, let us go on to the first of his main career opponent's slides. Now, Rosenbloom starts out fighting the great Harry Greb, a fight that left a massive impression on him, and in ways he tried to mirror Greb's style going forward. Okay, Harry Greb defeated him in a singular fight. Rosenbloom then had a 7-fight series with former light heavyweight champion and Hall of Famer Jimmy Slattery, okay, scoring 3 wins with 4 losses and no draws. He then also fought former champion and Hall of Famer Jack Delaney, suffering a defeat, before twice defeating former coloured middleweight champion Jamaica Kid. Next up is former middleweight champion, okay, Johnny Wilson. Maxie Rosenbloom fought him twice, scoring 2 wins, and he then fought a trilogy against Tiger Flowers, the former middleweight champion. Now, Rosenbloom didn't lose any of these 3 fights. He scored 1 win with no losses, and he fought 2 draws against Flowers. Next up is former welterweight champion, who also traversed up through middleweight, light heavyweight, Pete Latzo. Rosenbloom fought Latzo twice, scoring 1 win and 1 loss. He then also held singular wins over 2 more Hall of Famers. One is Ted Kid Lewis, the second is James J. Braddock. Next up is Bob Godwin, another former light heavyweight champion. Rosenbloom fought him on 7 occasions, scoring 3 wins with only 1 loss from the 7 fights. Rosenbloom also fighting 3 draws, and then he twice fought former light heavyweight champion Joe Knight, scoring no wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Next up, a trilogy against former champion and now Hall of Famer Tiger Jack Fox. Rosenbloom split the trilogy fully, 1 win, 1 loss and 1 draw, and then he also had a 5-fight series with the great light heavyweight John Henry Lewis. Now, Rosenbloom edged the series, scoring 3 wins while suffering 2 defeats from those 5 fights. Next up, another all-time great, Mickey Walker. Rosenbloom fought Mickey Walker twice, scoring 1 win, 1 loss with no draws. And to close out this first mammoth slide is a fight against former champion Bob Olin that Rosenbloom lost. So on that slide, you know, there's 15 opponents per slide, but on that slide you've got the 7-fight series with Slattery. You know, you've got the trilogy with Flowers, the trilogy with Tiger Jack Fox, the 5 fights with John Henry Lewis. You know, there's so many fights on there already, but that is only slide 1 for Maxie Rosenbloom. So Rosenbloom going on to slide 2. Okay, he also twice fought and twice defeated Hall of Famer Dave Shade. He then also fought Hall of Famer Young Stribling on 2 occasions, suffering 2 defeats. And then he fought a 6-fight series with former pound-for-pound ranked fighter in my rankings, Leo Lomsky, only suffering 1 defeat from those 6 fights, with also 3 wins and 2 draws in there. Next up, former pound-for-pound rated Ace Hudkins. Okay, Rosenbloom defeated him in a singular fight, and then he also fought a trilogy against another highly rated and former pound-for-pound fighter, Billy Jones. Okay, Maxie Rosenbloom scored 2 wins and 1 loss. He then twice fought Tony Chucko, okay, scoring 1 win, 1 loss and no draw. And Tony Chucko is a fighter who actually many people, believe should actually be in the Hall of Fame, even though he was never a champion. When you actually look at his record, it is very impressive. Next up, the almost decade-long top 10 light heavyweight contender and very good fighter himself, Al Gainer. Rosenbloom fought him twice, fighting a win and a draw from those 2 fights. And then Rosenbloom also twice fought Yale Okun, scoring 1 win and 1 draw. Sorry about that, the dog's driving me mental in the background. So next up is Tiger Jack Payne. Okay, Rosenbloom fought him on 4 occasions, scoring 3 wins and a draw. He then fought a draw in a singular fight against rated opponent young Johnny Burns. And his rated opponents go on for multiple slide after slide. Drunk Irish Minute Chat shout out. So, unlike other opponents, Rosenbloom has a very huge total of fights against rated fighters, even more than all the other all-time greats. The amount of fights he had against rated opponents is staggering, and he has multiple slides, every single one of them rated. it's incredible really what he did, his level of opposition. So after drawing to young Johnny Burns, he also defeats former rated contender George Courtney, scoring a win. He then scores a win over former top 10 middleweight contender Allentown Joe Gans, before fighting a draw to former light heavyweight contender Art Wiegand. Next up is a 6-fight series with a very tough contender, and if he went in the hall, I wouldn't be surprised in a way due to level of opposition he beat. Frankie Shawell, former contender, an excellent fighter he was. Okay, Rosenbloom scored 3 wins from the 6 fights with 1 loss and 2 draws, and he closes out slide 2 with a win against Frank Moody. So that is 2 slides down, both slides filled with way more than 15 fights, but we've not even fully scratched the surface yet. Let's go on to slide 3 of main opponents, and they are all still rated. So Rosenbloom starts this 3rd slide with a 7-fight series with the excellent Lou Scosa, scoring 4 wins and 3 losses. He then twice beats from 2 fights Phil K.O. Kaplan, who was an excellent contender, before then also gaining a win over former top 10 light heavyweight contender Tony Marolo. Next up is Jock Malone, who I've covered more recently. Maxie Rosenbloom fought Malone in a singular fight, suffering a defeat, and then he 4 times fought top 10 contender Joe Anderson, scoring 3 wins with 1 loss. Next up is the dangerous welterweight and middleweight contender Jack McVeigh. Rosenbloom fought McVeigh on 2 occasions, beating him both times, and then he also scored 4 wins in his career against top 10 light heavyweight contender Cuban Bobby Brown, so winning all 4 fights. Next up, former top 10 middleweight contender Roland Todd from the UK is also defeated by Rosenbloom, and then Rosenbloom suffers a defeat against contender Tommy Milligan. Next up, top 10 rated Oscar Till. Rosenbloom fights Till on 2 occasions, beating him both times, and then he also fights 3 fights, another trilogy against top 10 contender Charlie Belanger. Again, Rosenbloom wins all 3 fights. Next up is capable Fred Lenhart, very good grounded contender, very capable fighter. Rosenbloom fights a trilogy against him, and like Tiger Jack Fox, splits the trilogy into 1 win, 1 loss and 1 draw. He then scores a singular win over top 10 rated contender Joe Sakira, before also gaining 3 wins from 3 fights against top 10 rated Larry Johnson. The final name on here, on another slide full of fights, because like I said on slide 1, there's 15 fighters listed per slide, but on both slides he's having multiple fight series against multiple opponents, so every single slide has a lot of fights on them, and this one has been no different. So he ends with 4 fights against contender Battling Bozo, not losing any of them, scoring 2 wins and 2 draws. So another slide, 7 fights with Lou Scosa, 4 with Joe Anderson, 4 with Cuban Bobby Brown. His list of fights is incredible, and we are still on rated opponents as we go on to slide 4 of his main career breakdown. So Rosenbloom defeats contender Patsy Peroni in a singular fight, before then also twice defeating top 10 light heavyweight contender Joe Banovich. He then fights former top 10 contender George Manley, another capable contender, kind of like a young Reitmeyer or a Fred Lenhart. These contenders were very, very tough, capable fighters. He loses both fights to George Manley. He also then loses a singular fight to the capable Dave Meyer, before then scoring 2 singular wins. The first is against contender Harry Ebetz, and the second is against Nate Brown. Next up is Leroy Haynes. Rosenbloom fights Haynes on 2 occasions, winning him both times. Rosenbloom then also scores win over contender Adolf Husa, before then fighting his latest trilogy. He's had a number of fight runs, way more than trilogies, Scosa for example, and Slattery and John Henry Lewis, but he's also fought a lot of trilogies as well. This trilogy does not win against the capable Clyde Chastain, suffering 1 loss and 2 draws. He then fights top 10 contender Charlie Macera on 2 occasions, scoring 1 win and 1 loss, and then he has another trilogy against contender Johnny Miller. He wins this trilogy, scoring 2 wins with no losses and 1 draw. Next up, it goes on forever. Next up is Deacon Leo Kelly. Rosenbloom fought him on 4 occasions, again suffering no defeats from this series, as with Johnny Miller. Rosenbloom winning 3 of them and getting 1 draw. He then fights a 4-fight series in his career against former heavyweight contender Lee Ramage, scoring 1 win with 2 losses and 1 draw. And another thing about Rosenbloom's career, when you actually look at his career and go through the names, he's beaten top-level fighters, Hall of Famers, all-time greats, from welterweight to heavyweight, contenders from welterweight to heavyweight. I was discussing with someone online, and they were saying, oh, well, if Rosenbloom had more than a few fights at heavyweight, and I'm like, he did have more than a few fights at heavyweight. He had loads of fights against heavyweight contenders. When you actually look at his career, he actually fought a lot of fights against heavyweight contenders and some highly rated heavyweight contenders, and scored many wins. So next up is Oscar Rankins. Rosenbloom defeats him in a singular fight, and then he also defeats former top 10 contender Ford Smith, also in a singular fight. But another slide pack there, and we are still not finished with rated opponents. Let us go on to his 5th career slide. So starting this slide, is 2 fights with contender Hank Hankinson. Now Rosenbloom loses both of those fights. He then gains a win over former top 10 heavyweight contender King Levinsky, before also gaining win over top 10 heavyweight contender Roscoe Tolles. Next up is Alberto Lovell. Rosenbloom loses to him in a singular fight, and then he has 2 fights against very capable heavyweight contender Jimmy Adamick, scoring 1 win and 1 loss with no draws. Then he holds a win over former highly rated heavyweight contender Lou Nova in a singular fight, before then also fighting a draw to another excellent heavyweight contender Bob Pastor. Now comes Al Etor, another heavyweight. Rosenbloom defeats him in a singular fight. He then fights Billy Videbeck, in a singular fight, losing before also holding a win in a singular fight over Bruno Frattini. Next up is Rocky Smith. Rosenbloom fights him on 3 occasions, winning all 3 fights. He then also suffers a defeat against contender Jimmy Delaney. Next up is Harry Fuller. Rosenbloom defeats Harry Fuller 2 times in 2 fights. He then scores singular wins to close out this 5th career slide, defeating A.B. Bain and Tony Cancella. So, onwards we go to our final slide, slide 6 of main career opponents. Now, Rosenbloom defeats the capable Owen Phelps in a singular fight. He then also scores 2 wins from 2 against Martin Lewandowski, before then fighting a 4-fight series with Al Stillman, scoring 3 wins with no losses and 1 draw. And the final 2 names on here, the first is a singular win over Wilson Dunn, and the last name on here I'm highlighting is a singular win over Dutch Weimer. So basically that is a huge monumental number of fights. That is 172 fights highlighted there, an enormous total. And Rosenbloom doesn't just hit past 100 major fights, he hits past 100 major wins. Very, very few fighters have hit that accolade in my retired database. Rosenbloom, from those 172 fights, scores a massive 106 wins, 41 losses and 25 draws. His career is certainly only challenged by a few rare careers, in terms of the depth of his career, from the all-time greats to the Hall of Famers to the champions to the top 5 rated guys to the pound-for-pound rated guys, right down to the top 10 fighters, down to the fighters who were very capable, maybe ranked 10 to 20, 10 to 15. The sheer number and depth of his opponents is staggering. But there's his main opponent breakdown, so let us go on to his stat slides, where he also has some rather insane stats in certain areas. So on to KOs and rounds boxed. Rosenbloom was not a big puncher. Now I had a discussion with someone the other day, a friend of mine, and it was brought up about Rosenbloom, a quote that he broke every kind of legal law of boxing. But as I pointed out, that didn't make him dirty. Like I pointed out to my friend, big shout out to him. Jack Johnson also broke the laws of boxing. In boxing, it wasn't known that you'd pull an opponent's arm up his back, or catch punches in mid-air with palm of your glove, or throw the kind of combinations that Johnson could throw, sometimes 15-20 punch combinations. So he fought outside what was the normal expected rules of boxing. So was he dirty as well? I mean, Harry Greb was a dirty fighter, but yet when people talk about how great he is, you don't hear them say, oh yeah, but he was totally dirty and he broke all rules and he did this and that. So therefore, Rosenbloom doesn't deserve that treatment either. Rosenbloom had a swarming style. He was hard to catch clean at his best. He kind of tried to mirror Dempsey's style, a bit like future middleweight and very hard to beat fighter at his best, Ken Overlin, who was known as a poor man's Harry Greb, even though when you consider how he did with Ezard Charles amongst others, he was a major league fighter, but he was still considered a poor man's Harry Greb. Certain fighters fought with that swarming multi-punch style just because they were aggressive or slapped with the punches. And like I pointed out to my friend, well, Joe Calzaghe were accused of slapping for years. Does that mean he were a dirty fighter? Because he didn't punch how most boxers or trainers would expect him to punch with leverage? Yeah, you know, we've got to be very careful about that kind of thing. Now, when you talk about fighters like Zivich, Mysterious Billy Smith, you know, yes, they were very rough and tumble, Harry Greb as well. But we have to just make sure we properly portray these guys for who they are. So Rosenbloom had 19 knockouts. He scored 6 knockouts in 3 rounds or less and 0 first-round KOs. Now, Rosenbloom scored 2 knockouts against champions. He scored 0 knockouts against Hall of Famers and 0 knockouts against pound-for-pounders. He did score 2 KOs against rated opponents. And when we go on to the rounds boxed, I mean, it's insane. So Maxie Rosenbloom, in terms of overall career rounds, fought a total of 2,755. I wonder if, I've never worked it out, but would that actually be more than the top 15 pound-for-pounders in world now added together? Okay, so Rosenbloom fought an insane tally approaching 3,000 rounds. That is a crazy number there. So many of them against high-level fighters. So Rosenbloom also fought 130 title fight rounds. He fought totals of 408 rounds against champions, 288 rounds against Hall of Famers, and 475 rounds against pound-for-pounders. Now, Rosenbloom, in terms of rounds against top 10 fighters now, just think back to my Sugar Ray Robinson video, okay? Rosenbloom has an insane total, no fighter can match, okay, of rounds against top 10 fighters that come to an insane 1,520 rounds. That is rounds experience against top 10 fighters alone. Now, he also fought a staggering tally of 783 rounds against top 3 rated fighters, and Rosenbloom also fought 140 rounds against ring champions. So some crazy numbers there. So let's go on to his slide against champions. And Rosenbloom also was busy against champions, having a total of 40 fights against champions. He scored 19 wins, 14 losses, 7 draws. And even when you factor in the losses there, you know, a number of them were to Slattery, one was to Harry Greb, one was to Mickey Walker. He actually lost a lot of those fights to very high level fighters. So 19 wins, 14 losses, 7 draws. Now, Rosenbloom defeated 11 individual champions. They were Jimmy Slattery, Jamaica Kid, Johnny Wilson, Tiger Flowers, Pete Latzo, Ted Kid Lewis, James J. Braddock, Bob Godwin, Tiger Jack Fox, John Henry Lewis, and the great Mickey Walker. He scored knockout or stoppage over 2 of those champions, being Jamaica Kid and Bob Godwin. So on to the Hall of Fame slide for Rosenbloom. He had 28 fights against Hall of Famers, so way shy of Langford and Greb's tally, but still an impressive total nonetheless. He scored 13 wins with 12 losses and 3 draws from those 28 fights, and Rosenbloom defeated 8 Hall of Fame fighters. They were Jimmy Slattery, Dave Shade, Tiger Flowers, Ted Kid Lewis, James J. Braddock, Tiger Jack Fox, John Henry Lewis, and Mickey Walker. And Rosenbloom scored 0 knockouts against Hall of Famers individually. So on to the pound for pound category, where Rosenbloom has his biggest tally. A total of 46 fights against pound for pounders. That is more than most modern fighters' career totals. Rosenbloom scored 22 wins with 17 losses and 7 draws from those 46 fights. And Rosenbloom defeated 14 individual pound for pound fighters, so not as many as Greb or Armstrong as McLarnin, but still a very impressive total nonetheless. They were Jimmy Slattery, Dave Shade, Tiger Flowers, Leo Lomsky, Pete Latzo, Ted Kid Lewis, James Shea Braddock, Ace Hudkins, Billy Jones, Tony Chucko, Tiger Jack Fox, John Henry Lewis, Mickey Walker, and Al Gainer. Rosenbloom scored 0 knockouts against pound for pound fighters individually. Still an impressive total at 14. So on to his record against rated opponents. Now, a disclaimer, on my other channel I always listed him at 145. But when I started work on my new career files, I realised that during the transfer there'd been a mess up, okay, and some of the ratings were missing. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to restructure the ratings around light heavyweight and heavyweight, and that changed Rosenbloom's total. Rosenbloom's total is not actually 145, it is 151. Now from those, that's just a crazy number. 151 fights against top 10 fighters. I mean, it's pure insanity. So Rosenbloom scored 87 wins with 40 losses and 24 draws from those 151 fights. And he had 75 fights against top 3 rated fighters. A number that is stupid when you match him to today's even top level fighters' records in that current statistic. But Rosenbloom had 75, scoring 39 wins, 24 losses and 12 draws. But interestingly, he has just less than half the number of fights against ring champions that Ray Robinson did, etc, etc. So Rosenbloom had 12 fights against ring champions with 5 wins, 7 losses and no draws. And Maxie Rosenbloom, all in all, defeated 51 individual rated fighters. Rosenbloom scored knockouts, of course, over 2 rated fighters individually. So, insane numbers really. So on to title fight stats now. Rosenbloom had 10 world title fights, okay. He had a title fight record of 7 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. Now Rosenbloom made 7 title defences. He also scored 2 title fight knockouts. And from those 7 world title fight wins, he scored 6 wins against top 10 rated fighters, 6 wins against top 3 fighters and 1 win against a ring champion. And in world title fights, he scored 4 wins against champions, 3 wins against Hall of Famers and 3 wins against pounders. If we think back to Sugar Ray Robinson, okay, he had 9 wins in all categories, champions, Hall of Famers, pounders. So that's another of those areas where Robinson's title fight record is stronger, as he has more wins against Hall of Famers, etc. One of the many twos and fro's when you match huge great careers like Rosenbloom and Robinson, or Greb and Langford. There's certain areas where one of them will be better than the other, the other one will be better than that one, then that one will be better than that one, and it's all the mix, which is why I created the rating system I did, to factor through everything and take my opinion out of it. So there's his title fight numbers. On to titles held. Okay, I won't go into craziness, but he didn't hold 5 world titles. I'm not saying he held 5 world titles. We have to remember there was NSAC, and then if you unified with NBA, you became world light heavyweight champion, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, Maxie Rosenbloom captured in his career the NSAC light heavyweight title. He was a 2-time NBA light heavyweight title holder and 2-time considered world light heavyweight title holder. Rosenbloom captured in his career the LINEAL light heavyweight championship, and he was a 2-time undisputed light heavyweight champion. So there ends this insane career video for Maxie Rosenbloom. We've had Robinson recently, I've done Greb and Langford prior. There's still more massive names to go in the 1910-1930 era. I've now, as I've said, I'm mixing fighters, I'm picking fighters from both, basically 1890 to 1930 periods. These where all these videos are coming from. So some are from what would have been on my old channel, the 1890-1910 period I did first, then I was working on 1910-1930, but now, because they're both considered the area that covers the pre-rating era, I'm just doing both of them intermixed. And then when I come back, 1930 to 1950 period onwards, then all of them will be in the full rating era, pretty much. There'll be very rare fighters who fought in early 20s who fought through the 30s. So pretty much every fighter then will have full rating information, rated opponents beat, rounds against rated opponents, etc, etc, etc. So there ends the massive video on Maxie Rosenbloom. It's ran over 20 minutes, I'm not surprised. On to 6 slides of main opponents, virtually all of them rated opponents. His career is one of the deepest careers you can find, only matched really by fighters like Greb, Langford, Dundee, etc. Fighters of that stature. Rosenbloom is in that small category at the top of boxing, with not only a huge career, nearly 300 fights, but an incredibly deep career, covering top rated fighters, champions or Hall of Famers from welterweight to heavyweight. really insane career he had. So I will now go and rest my voice and have a drink of this gorgeous pint of coffee I've just made that has been cooling a bit while I've been yabbering on, going through all Rosenbloom's opponents. But yep, Unboxing Librarian. Coming tomorrow, okay, will be the latest video in my top 10 fighters born by country, and we're covering the top 10 greatest English fighters. Okay, so that will come tomorrow. So I'm out for now. You know, I'll be back soon with more videos. Take care.